Hello, I'm Dr. Bryant Lynn, Faculty Director of the Medical Humanities and the Arts Program in the Center for Bioethics at the Stanford School of Medicine. We are thrilled to welcome you to this special evening, recognizing the winners of this year's Dr. Paul Kalanithi Writing Contest. Thanks to everyone who submitted to the contest, to our talented judges, and to our wonderful program manager, Christy Hartman, who makes this contest happen and is managing our Zoom today as well. Congratulations to our winners, who we are thrilled to hear from this evening. As many of you know, Paul was a graduate of Stanford's neurosurgery residency program and author of the #1 New York Times bestselling memoir, When Breath Becomes Air, which was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize and has been translated into more than 40 languages. We wanted to play a short clip from a longer video about Paul created by Mark Hanlon with the Stanford Medicine Communications with Stanford Medicine Communications to just give our audience a sense of Paul and how this contest was created in the spirit of his words.
5 years down the line, I don't know what I'll be doing. I may be dead, I may not be. If you asked me when I was 17 what I'd be doing with my life, I would have said, oh, I'd definitely be a writer. But found medicine was, in fact, the perfect place. I first began noticing symptoms in my 6th year of residency. Obviously, Lucy and I were both very suspicious that I had some form of cancer, but actually having the confirmation was still devastating. Since Katie's birth, my time with her has had a very peculiar and free nature. In all probability, I won't live long enough for her to remember me, and so the time is what it is. It's a careful balance. If you don't think about the bad case, that ending is going to be very rough on you and your family. But if you don't think about the good case, you're going to miss an opportunity to really make the most out of your life and time.
So, to honor Paul's legacy, Dr. Steve Ash, together with our wonderful benefactor, Jean Collier Hurley, and Dr. Lucy Kalanithi, created this contest, now in its 10th year. Jean could not be with us this evening, but sent this note to share. Hello and congratulations to the Kalanithi Award recipients on this 10th anniversary celebration. It has been a pleasure and an honor to be associated with this inspiring program and with those of you who designed and have managed it throughout these years. The writing of Paul Kalanithi continues to resonate with me, especially on the opening page of his book, as he was looking at an X-ray of a cancer-filled lung, knowing that it was his own. Later in his book, he writes about facing his mortality and trying to understand what made his life worth living. Several years earlier, as the surrogate for my dying father, I tried to help him answer that question. Even though I was well educated with a successful business career and from a family of medical professionals, albeit an only child, I was lost and did not know where to turn. Reaching out to friends for support, I was comforted by their thoughtful compassion, and yet they did not have the answers I was seeking. A few years later, I set out to find some of these answers and possibly record them for others who one day might also need support with a dying loved one. That led to my Stanford MLA thesis, Patient Autonomy and End-of-Life Care. It is a guide through end-of-life care and how to find answers along the way, often through palliative care and hospice. The thesis ends with a quote from Plato about the death of Socrates, who said to his jailer, "You, my good friend, who are experienced in these matters, shall give me direction how I am to proceed." The experience of writing for the Kalanithi program is for each of you a deeply personal experience. It may, however, lead you to think about what makes life worth living, as it did for Kalanithi and as the thesis did for me. Your writing may also, like the writings of Plato and Kalanithi, inspire not only those who read it now, but also those who may turn to it in many years to come. Best wishes to you all, and thank you for your thoughtful gift to this program, and congratulations. I just wanted to thank Jean again for supporting this wonderful contest. It is now my pleasure and honor to introduce a person who continues to amaze and inspire us with her kindness, intelligence, and passion for her work, and that is Dr. Lucy Kalanithi. Dr. Kalanithi is Clinical Associate Professor of Medicine at Stanford and an advocate for culture change around healthcare value. She has appeared on stage at TED Med and is an honoree of Mass General Cancer Center's The 100. She is also the proud mom of Katie, who we saw as a baby in the video. Katie is now a sixth grader. Thanks, Dr. Kalanithi. Oh, you're on mute.
Okay, I was the first one to do that, I guess. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Bryant, it's really been wonderful to have you join us this year as a judge in part of the program. And I'm really amazed that it's been 10 years, incredibly grateful that we continue to have just really beautiful pieces come in and have the honor of reading those. So thank you, especially to the entrants and also, of course, to the judges and everyone attending. This is one of my favorite days of the year. And as with many things, I wish that Paul were here to participate and get to read your really amazing words, but I'm so glad that we can be. Um, I am going to, well, first let me say there will be time for some Q&A at the end, particularly for the writers who are here. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to submit them in the chat. And first we will start, I'm going to pass off to another judge, Ricardo Nuila, who is incredible and who's going to introduce the nonfiction winner first. I'll just give you a little bit of background on Dr. Nuila. He is a writer and practicing doctor at Houston's largest public hospital. His work has been featured in the New Yorker, Texas Monthly, the New England Journal of Medicine, and Best American Short Stories. His first book, The People's Hospital, Hope and Peril in American Medicine, was featured on NPR's Fresh Air. In its review, the New York Times notes that Ricardo is a skillful writer who humanizes his points in meticulous and compassionate detail. He is the director of the Humanities, Expression, and Arts Lab, also called HEAL, at Baylor College of Medicine. Thank you so much for being one of our judges. It's truly an honor to have you, and I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Lucy, and thank you for everything that you do, Lucy, really, and everybody at Stanford for having this competition and just being a forum so that people can turn in stories, can write, can keep the flame going. It's really something, and it's just an honor to be here. I am going to introduce our first winner, Yanto Muir, whose nonfiction piece is titled Survival is Maintenance. Maintenance is Invisible. So Yanto Muir is an intersex writer based in Raleigh, North Carolina. Their work explores what it costs to stay alive, the daily unwitnessed work of recovery, and what it looks like when no one is watching. Yanto, can you please tell us a bit about your essay, and then, if you don't mind, please sharing a short excerpt that you've chosen.
So my piece, Survival is Maintenance Basis, is invisible. I think my focus was to shift the conversation from looking better to actually being better. And so that was the biggest driving force in this piece. So when it comes to like picking apart We'll go here. From the outside, nothing looks different. People tell me I seem better. They told me that then too. I learned early how to look fine, steady voice, careful answers, tension distributed just right so no one asks follow-up questions. Progress doesn't announce itself. It quietly replaces performance with labor. History of present illness. After a 15-minute consult with a new psychiatrist handed me an intake form. It was neat, orderly, hospitalizations, medications, procedures. Then, have you ever attempted suicide? Yes, no. The box was too small. It couldn't hold the why, the how, or the choice to climb out of the river. It couldn't hold the silence that followed. I felt the urge to check no. Instead, I drew a backwards check mark in yes, crooked and defensive, and moved on. The form didn't ask for more.
Thank you so much for that. I have to say something. I have attempted to write pieces with the form of a note. Um, they are buried somewhere where I don't want anybody to see them because I have not been able to execute it. So I will be honest with you. I opened up your piece and I was like, well, we'll see what happens with this from the very beginning. And it was great. You nailed it. You
Thank you.
executed it very, very well. And I was very proud that you did that. So thank you for submitting it and for caring so much about the form and believing in the form as the way of expressing your voice.
Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. Uh, now, it's my pleasure to introduce our next judge, Dr. Ashley McMullen. Dr. McMullen is an assistant professor of medicine at the University of California, San Francisco, and a primary care internist based at the San Francisco VA hospital. She is also a Houston, Texas native. You'll see that there is like a theme and throughout this that Houston is a pretty decently well represented literary city, despite a lot of people that might think otherwise. But she is also a Houston, Texas native and a lifelong book nerd who grew up nurtured by her mother, a pediatric nurse, and grandmother, an ordained minister. Dr. Mullen's work focuses on the role of narrative and storytelling in medical education and as a mechanism for healing, advocacy, and improving care across differences. She served as the host and producer of the Nocturnist, Black Voices in Healthcare series, a 2021 Webby Award honoree, and hosts a storytelling podcast with Dr. Kimberly Manning called The Human Doctor.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Ricardo, and shout out to H-Town and all the fellow Texans who might be on the call today. It has been such an honor to serve as a judge on this panel. The greatest privilege is to read so many incredible pieces and then have to do the heavy lifting of narrowing it down to just a few out of so many outstanding works. But these pieces were truly remarkable. And it is definitely my pleasure to introduce the winner of our first place poem, Sumit Kumar Gupta. And his poem is called Dialysis Thursday. Unfortunately, my understanding is that Sumit can't join us this evening, so I will share a little bit about him and then read the poem in his honor. So Sumit Kumar Gupta is a writer hailing from Bhojpuri in the Indian state of Bihar. His literary focus lies in the art of poetry and the concise narrative form of flash fiction, where he explores the depth of human experience with precision and evocative imagery. So again, unfortunately, Sumit cannot join us this evening, but I will share his poem now, which has been displayed on the screen. Dialysis Thursday. The order reads, 3 hours, ultrafiltrate gently, as if the machine might learn bedside manner by repetition. You are already here when I arrive, cardigan folded like a small surrender on the plastic chair, fistula humming in your arm like a captive beehive. Same as always, you say, and the nurse answers with tired certainty. No one writes the same in the chart. We call it stable, as though this were balance and not suspension. There we go. A little bit of the words covered up. I listen to your lungs, hear the faint crackle of water you carried in. The flood the dialyzer will undo, cup by microscopic cup. You tell me about the peach tree you planted before your kidneys failed, how the fruit grew heavier each summer while your body learned the opposite trick. Will I ever be off this, you ask? On the monitor, your pressure dips, recovers like a practiced shrug. Training gave me many answers and almost no endings. I talk about options, build careful sentences around maybe. The machine ticks on, indifferent. You close your eyes, imagining, you say, not cure, but rain, ordinary, unmeasured, falling on a background where a tree you cannot water forgives you by blooming anyway. Absolutely stunning writing. Thank you so much, Sumit, for gracing us with this poem, and congratulations on your first place win. So it is now my honor to introduce our next judge, Dr. Grace Lee. Grace D. Lee grew up in Pearland, Texas, again, shout out to Texas, and is a graduate of Duke University and Stanford School of Medicine. She is a former winner of this contest and the New York Times bestselling author of Portrait of a Thief, which was published while she was at Stanford. Her next novel, Anatomy of a Betrayal, will be released in 2027, so get ready. She is currently a second-year emergency medicine resident at Mass General Brigham Hospital. Over to you, Grace.
Okay, thank you so much, Ashley. This event is always one of my favorite nights of the year. I love getting to sit and talk together with all of the other judges and this community and think about writing and fiction and poetry and nonfiction. I think I leave it always feeling so rejuvenated. So I am so pleased and so honored to introduce Brian Zong, who is a current Stanford medical student, although unfortunately we did not overlap. Brian Zong is a first-year med student at Stanford. He graduated in 2025 from Yale University, where he studied evolutionary biology and Spanish. In his free time, he enjoys reading poetry and cafe hopping with friends. Brian's entry, Birds, was chosen first place for fiction. I loved reading this piece so much. I reread it just before this event in preparation, and every time I find new things in the phrasing and the sentence structure that just move me. So I am so excited to hear a little bit more. Brian, tell us a bit about your story and then maybe an excerpt that you've chosen to share with us.
Grace, this is seriously and truly such an honor. Thank you for the lovely introduction. I'm one of your biggest fans. I bought your book last summer, and you have done so much for the medical humanities and been such a staunch advocate for intersecting humanities with the sciences within the Stanford community, and to be even able to follow in your footsteps has been nothing short of extraordinary. I also want to give a thank you to Dr. Kalanithi and to the entire rest of the judging panel, to Yanto and Sumit for their wonderful pieces. I wrote a lot about Dr. Kalanithi's story in my applications to medical school, and this feels like a full circle moment, and I'm very grateful that you believe in my story and chose my piece. I wrote about my piece because I feel like I'm a pretty naive person sometimes, and I like to think that love answers all of my questions, but we are all finite beings who are bounded by our health, by disease, by our societal expectations, and by parental approval. And I want to leave, I want my children to grow up in a world where they're raised with less of those worries and they can just focus on love. And this was my letter to my children. Birds. Preston set his knitting needles down on the tray table and leaned back. Wow, he said. That went by fast. I thought he meant the movie. It was his pick tonight. Firebird, a 2021 film about a Cold War love triangle. Friday movie nights had been a tradition since our youngest Maya had left for university, and our place went quiet for the first time in 20 years. Preston and I had to learn how to be comfortable with being just two people again, and we had compared lists of things we like to do. Spending evenings indoors, snuggling in bed, gossiping about fictional characters over a spread of good snacks happened to be one of the hobbies we had in common. What do you mean? I asked. He put an arm around me and picked at my wristband. Doing this whole husband thing with you, he said. It went by fast. I looked at him. The man beside me had white hair and circular glasses perched low on his nose. His hands were steady, the way they always were in my memory. I could swear I'd only blinked. He had been 27 only yesterday, scrawny in an oversized blue sweater fresh out of Yale Law. He was slightly proud and enjoyed an evening smoke, but had many redeeming qualities. He woke up at 8:30 every Sunday to go to the farmer's market to buy my favorite Vietnamese sandwiches from this one stand. For our first date, we met in the cafeteria of the New York Presbyterian Hospital, where I had been working as an medicine resident. He bantered so well with the serving staff that they remembered his name better than mine. He found me at a time when I had found my footing in my career and was finally getting paid for it, but in shambles about pretty much everything else. At 25, I worried constantly that I was running out of time and wondered if the fear of living and loving ordinarily would ever lift for gay men. Before Preston, no one had bought me flowers before. Our room smelled faintly of disinfectant. I pulled the purple blanket he had knitted for me one Christmas up to my chin. Across from us, small desk frame photographs of our children caught the television's glow. Maya with frosting in her nose, Jackson at his first swim meet, Natalie in a too big corsage posing with a high school boyfriend. Did you move those? I asked. Preston followed my gaze. No, they're exactly where they should be. I don't have dementia, I said. It came out like a question. He reached for my hand and squeezed once. No, honey, you don't. I let myself breathe. We did it, I said. We raised them. We really did, he said. Somewhere down the hallway, a voice crackled over a speaker. Lights out in 10 minutes. A moment later, a man and woman in scrubs appeared in the doorway. Mr. Zhang? The man asked, glancing at the chart. Just making sure you heard the announcement. If you need anything overnight, press the blue button by your bed and an aide will come. I think I'll be all right, I said. My husband's here. He's staying. The nursing aide's eyes flicked around the room. The man opened his mouth, about to say something, but the woman interrupted him. It's wonderful that your husband is visiting and here to help, she said. Good night, Mr. Zhang. They started to close the door, then hesitated. And the blue call button, the woman repeated, firmer now. If you need us. And let us know if your husband needs anything too. Preston did not answer. He never does when they speak. I watched the door close and felt all at once very tired. He picked up his needles again, the soft click click grounding me. And after a moment, he said, We should go before we miss it. I frowned. Go where? He smiled. You know, you remember. I closed my eyes. After spending 8 years doing undergrad in medical school in the Bay, I had forgotten how unforgiving East Coast winters were. You enjoy doing hard things, though, Preston said, zipping his puffer jacket all the way up to his chin. You chose emergency medicine. I chose saving lives in a heated facility, I corrected him. There is a difference. We had just arrived at a campsite on the banks of the Long Island Sound in West Haven, 75 miles northeast of the apartment we rented in Washington Heights. There were families and groups of teenagers that had already set up their tents. Preston said this was a good spot to see the Geminids, a meteor shower that peaks every year in December. I didn't tell my mother about the trip. We had argued the night before over the usual things. She said I was stitching myself together from the wrong parts and would eventually come apart. She warned me again about the sickness, about the consequences, about what happens to men like me, citing statistics she had read from articles in her fellow Asian immigrant WeChat circles. She also called Preston poison, someone who led her only son astray, let alone accept him as another son. Preston heard it all. He was folding our scarves at the kitchen table, careful and unhurried. Over the years, the woman I loved most in the world had grown increasingly creative with her metaphors about gay people. She called me again while we were almost finished packing. I let it ring. It wasn't until I was inside the tent, wrestling my sleeping bag into place, that it finally spilled out of me. I'm sorry about my mother, I said. You don't deserve that. Preston lay on his back, staring at the low ceiling where our breath fogged and faded. You don't have to protect me from her, he said. I don't want that. He was quiet for a long time, then said almost casually, My file was mostly adjectives. That's how they talked about me, he continued. Pleasant, well-tempered, adapts well. County staff love him. He huffed a small laugh. I think they hoped families would read it and feel safe, like I wouldn't cause any trouble if they decided to take a foster child home. He picked out a loose thread on his sleeve. For a long time, I thought being liked was the safest thing you could be. Don't make trouble, don't ask for too much, don't say what you actually want. The tense shifted as the wind picked up. I thought if I stayed agreeable long enough, he said, someone would decide to finally keep me. He shook his head. Turns out being easy to place isn't the same thing as being chosen. I didn't know what to say. I just looked at him. So whenever you talk about giving up on your family, he said, still not looking at me, I know this won't be what you want to hear, but your mother, she loves you. She's wrong and it can get exhausting, but she's still here. You have something I don't. He turned then, his voice softer. Don't walk away just because it hurts. That will be selfish. And you are not a selfish person, Matthew Zhang. Outside, a man shouted, There, another one. A ripple of excitement followed, voices overlapping. Preston pushed the tent flap aside, and cold air poured in sharp and clean, stealing my breath. The forest stretched out beyond us, black trunks, frostbright ground, clusters of headlamps and flashlights bobbing as people looked up. Come on, Matt, he said, holding out his hand. I barely had time to protest before he crouched and lifted me onto his shoulders, sudden and reckless. I yelped, gripping his hair as my legs locked instinctively around his neck. Jesus, I said. I looked up. The obsidian sky was a living thing. White lines tore through the dark, quick and thin like chalk marks, like northern gannets plunging into the sea for prey. Other streaks verged on the shades of pink or green, flaring wide and lingering ghostly, like a flock of mythical birds on some mission. The campers below gasped and counted under their breath, an annual migration of rocks and dust burning themselves out for our benefit. They're just space debris, Preston said, steady beneath me. Leftovers from this parent asteroid called 3200 Phathon. Most days they go unnoticed. Then, for a few nights every year, they hit the atmosphere just right. His hands tightened around my calves. They refused to be ignored. Romantic, I said weakly. It is, he said. Make a wish. I hesitated. Another shooting star darted by above us. Do you, uh, do you think it ever gets better for the birds, Preston? I asked him. Do you, uh, do you think all birds go on to get married, have children, call their parents frequently, and grow old? He paused and then, yes, I really do think so. Then I wish all of those things for us. Preston huffed, his breath like powdered sugar in the 8-degree Fahrenheit air. I was gonna wish for more upper body strength. Now I feel like an asshole. He set me back down, cut my face, and he kissed me. Every pair of eyes on the campsite were on us. In English, we don't have a word for being mortified, proud, and stupidly in love all at the same time, but that was what I felt. That night, I overflowed with an audacity to reach for something greater than myself, even though I had no idea how to hold it. I reached for Preston and then for my mother. When I open my eyes, the stars are gone. The ceiling above me is white. The room is quiet. The chair beside my bed is empty. Idle waves of color roll around the TV screen sitting in front of me. I had probably forgotten to turn it off last night. Through the cracks in the window blinds, I could see the daylight outside. Preston is not here. I know without knowing how that it's gonna be okay. He will return. I am quite hungry, though. This morning, I decide that I would like to break routine and have breakfast with Mrs. Mary Pope and Mr. Kevin Marino, two of the other senior citizens I met since coming to the facility. When Preston was diagnosed with end-stage liver cancer on his 66th birthday, I asked if he was scared. He joked and said, not really, except he added that he was scared of leaving behind an introverted old man like me to make friends and talk to strangers by myself. I vowed to prove him wrong. I know I have to press one of the buttons by my bed to call for a nursing aide to help me change and brush my teeth, but I can't remember which. So I try all the colors. In the meantime, I reach for my phone to dial my mother's number. I have an unexpected surgery that the attending had asked me to scrub into tonight, so I'll have to put a rain check on our dinner plans. But I'd like to meet her for dim sum tomorrow. I will also bring her lilies from the local florist. Lilies are my mother's favorite flowers. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, Brian. Every time I hear the story again, I get chills. I think you just have such a lovely way of talking about detail, and it's also unexpectedly funny. And also, as an emergency medicine resident, obviously, I have a soft spot for that. Um, so thank you so much again for sharing. We will talk more. Um, but now I am so pleased to introduce our next judge, Jacqueline Genovese. Jackie is the Executive Director of the Medical Humanities and the Arts program at Stanford School of Medicine and holds master's degrees in Medical Humanities and the Arts and Creative Nonfiction. She's honored to work with physicians, clinical students, and student veterans at Stanford, and to have been part of this contest for the last 10 years. Jackie taught one of the very first classes that I took at Stanford, so it is my special pleasure to introduce her today. Over to you, Jackie.
Thank you so much, Grace. And I still remember the kittens from one of your writing pieces in that class back in the day. Thank you all so much. This is carving this time out every year is really healing and important for all of us, and we are so grateful. So I will be introducing our first honorable mention in poetry, Joyce Kerr. Her poem is Lessons on Etymology. Joyce is a first-year medical student at Harvard Medical School. She studied medical humanities at Johns Hopkins University and is passionate about integrating poetry into patient care. Kerr is a Pushcart Prize and Best New Poets nominee. Unfortunately, Joyce had a schedule change and cannot join us this evening, but she kindly sent us a recording of her reading her poem, Lessons in Etymology, that we will play for you now.
Lesson on Etymology. In Greek, karkikanos, Latin, cancer, a growth, lump, what lurks like a crab, growing, by which I mean omnicellula is cellula, each cell stems from another cell. Incision in your chest cavity to remove a lobe, a lump of cells. Call it obscene, Latin obscenus, ill-omened, abominable, repugnant to the senses. Chemical warfare of cisplatin and docetaxel, your watery stool and scaly skin, pungent celery juice and bone broth protein powder, repugnant to your senses, extracted from marrow, the essence of life. Or do you need to exorcise your unmet desires, your anger, or in youth were you a smoker, in which case I have nothing to say. The night before your surgery, you asked if this were all foretold by the stars. Cancer, constellation of a crab in the heavens, inhabiting the shore of your body. Altarf, its brightest star, from Arabic for the end. You do not believe in desire or spirits or fate. You hate me, hate your body, hate the Kaplan-Meier survival curve. In the beginning, a blood cough, not in your rib cage, 2 centimeters in diameter, spiked like a crab claw, not smooth-edged like a clenched fist. In Chinese, you say cancer, I, which sounds too much like I, meaning love, which is to say, you must still love life. Or have you forgotten it, your life, your childhood in Wenzhou, the mountains white with snow, Xue? Carrying timber on your back, not afraid of God or fortune, crying when you fell and saw your own blood, Xue. The mountain's topography carrying a history, an identity. Your history, gone, gone, gone. All of it ligang with cancer. Metastasis, Latin meta and stasis, beyond stillness, the body's geography unmoored. What cruel topography, your blood an ocean that breathes and breaks, lurking still.
Okay, so you can see why this was chosen. Just such a powerful poem and playing on the idea of the meanings behind our medical terminology and just the beautiful imagery. Thank you, Joyce. I know you're not here with us, but hopefully you'll see this recording. Next, I would like to hand it back to Lucy, our proud leader, and she will introduce our last poem. Oh, I think you're still muted, Lucy. I know. It's okay.
Okay. 2 times. Sorry. Okay. So thanks so much. This last poem is the second honorable mention for poetry. And the poet here is Liam Little, who is actually an undergrad who will be graduating next month. Liam is a senior at the University of Maryland studying philosophy, politics, and economics. He has just begun submitting his writing for publication. He writes fiction, poetry, essays, and memoir. His voice and the themes he deals with in his writing are drawn from his experiences at university and growing up overseas. And luckily, Liam couldn't attend, but he also sent an audio recording of his poem, which we'll get to listen to now. And this was a poem we all truly enjoyed. It employs some really simple metaphor that ends up accomplishing something really deep and human. So thank you so much for sharing this, Liam.
A single clap. A single clap. I remember that room of isolation, the sound of the singular clap, the clap that was my own, a steady beat to keep my belief. I remember when it was just me, when all that kept me going was the sound of that clap, the rhythm of my belief. I remember how it felt in the dark shadows of uncertainty. So in that room of isolation, I will join you. And now there will be the two of us clapping. Now the two of us believe in the dream and in you.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me. Can hear me, yeah. So that's the conclusion of the writers sharing what they brought this evening. And we'd love to close with answering any questions you may have. And in particular, for Brian and Yanto, if anybody has questions that you'd like to ask them about their pieces or their process, you're very welcome to. And I will also check the chat. And if not, I'm happy to start with a question, or if any of the other judges would like to, you're very welcome to as well.
And there's a Q&A function too, if people want to put their questions in there to the lower right.
I'll give it just a moment. Okay, I'm hoping that I could ask a question to Yanto. First of all, thank you for sharing that reading. It's really wonderful to have you here. And Ricardo told you how much we really admired the way that you used the structure of a medical note, starting with history of present illness and going through to an assessment and plan, and just humanize that in the most incredible, brilliant detail. And I'm curious, sort of either how you decided to do that or how you went about doing that, and using that format. And if that's not a question you want to answer, or if you want to dovetail on that, I'd love to know any advice you have about for younger writers or other newer writers. So either your process for this piece or advice that you may have for others. I'd love to hear.
All right, so for this piece, I'd actually just completed a 3-week inpatient program that was my first entry into like group therapy and stuff like that. And so breaking things down into the smaller pieces, like the history of present illness, the chief complaint, the medication compliance, really forced me to get down to the micro level of all of the things that I could do to be better, or the things that are hurting or harming me. So being able to break it down was a very healing aspect of writing this. A previous piece that I've written, everything was broken down into a certain amount of steps and time and stuff like that. So like just having those blocks is something that I find myself going back to as a form of writing. So I think it's just breaking it down piece by piece is probably the best piece of advice I can offer.
Thank you so much. And I really think this piece in particular has like an important role in the medical humanities, just the way you sort of like shone a light on the personal experience behind that structure was really powerful. Thanks so much again.
Lucy, there's a couple of questions. I don't know if you can
Fabulous.
see them. Yeah, I published it.
Wonderful. Heck, I can't see it. Would you mind
Sure.
sharing them out if you can see them, Jackie?
It says, can we submit reworked piece next year? Yes. And just so everybody knows, the entries are blinded. We don't know who the author is until the very end when the ranking, when the winners are chosen and ranked. So, but yes, you can resubmit. And then the next comment is cancer grabs much from life, living, and then fading and ending. That was a comment from Phyllis. And I just had a quick question for Brian. Grace, I don't know if you heard this in the beginning, but Brian was saying that the line for the emergency medicine person in the story was inspired by you. So, which is so great. So I wanted to ask Brian other things that inspired you in addition to Grace in creating your piece.
No, seriously, thank you, Jackie. Grace, you've been such an inspiration for me. Laurel Braitman and I talk about you all the time. I'm in the same creative writing class that you took a while ago and that you TA'd for. And I also brought you up during Discovery Days multiple times because people were asking, like, oh, like, how do you get support writing a memoir? How do you get support writing a story? And you've been a trailblazer in that regard. Yeah, the email line was inspired by you. I also named Preston after one of my classmates in the M1 class because I see the way that he treats his wife, and it's seriously one of the most beautiful things ever. And I also like to walk back and forth from LK during classes, and I see coupled relationships biking down Jane Stanford, and I really wanted to capture this very naive and very uh, this the way that love isn't typically captured for a lot of queer individuals. I wanted to make sure that that also gets portrayed while also acknowledging that there are finite boundaries that control how much we can love another person.
Thank you.
Other questions coming up for anybody?
Christy, I don't know if the general audience can see your comment, but I love that. Based on what Yanto said, just break it into steps is how someone told me they learned how to repair their car. And I've adopted this philosophy blindly towards everything. That's true, bird by bird, right? Anne Lamott's
Bird
writing
by
book,
bird.
bird by bird, piece by piece, step by step.
We have a question that just came in. Either or both of you, if you'd like to answer. Are these pieces that you worked on over time and evolved, or were they born from immediate sparks of inspiration? I think we have some of that answered by Yanto, but if there's anything you want to add, you're welcome. And Brian, if you want to answer too.
I
Oh, wait, you're
workshop.
muted. Yeah, great.
A lot of my classmates have been really helpful in helping me workshop. I believe that one of the joys um, is collaborating with others, reading other people's work, getting feedback on your own work. And that was definitely instrumental in helping the piece become what it was today.
Great, thank you. I think we can finish up. Truly, thanks so much. And please do stay in touch with us. And anybody who's joining, or if you want to share this among your communities, feel free to send people our way. This is an annual contest. And again, we're so happy to be here and really honored to join you in this. Bye, everybody.